Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlisify here, and decided to use Alolan Marowak, so we got some spooky flames going on with this Fire Ghost typing, and it's a crazy typing that there's only 4 neutral hits, so everything else is going to be a weakness, immunity, or a resistance. Kind of crazy to think about, and when it comes to the weaknesses, it's just going to stack. So think Fire, think Ghost, that's your weaknesses. Ground, Rock, Ghost, Water, Dark. So quite a bit of weakness right there. Then we trade that for the immunities off of the Ghost typing, and then a resistance to Poison, Bug, Steel, Fire, Grass, Ice, and Fairy. It's kind of just easier to think about what hits you neutrally. Just 4 typings. Okay, good to go right there. Looking at the typing offensively, it's going to be pretty solid. No real overlap between what is immune to us and what resists us, so we're just going to have a good amount of super effective hits with Ghost, Psychic, Bug, Grass, Ice, and Steel. Just kind of hitting a little bit of everything right here, and the Fire typing is a really solid typing offensively. Looking at these stats for the Alolan Marowak, going to be the same as regular Marowak, that we have 60 hit points, 80 attack, 110 defense, 80 on the special defense, and then the other stats are really low, so we don't really need to worry about them too much. Max out hit points, max out attack, become tankier than one would expect while also doing a decent amount of damage, but we do get the Thick Club item, which makes Marowak pretty insane. So let's go into Cerebi and see what we're going to do with this bad boy right here. So for the Alolan form, we're going to have the Cursed Body, makes sense on a Ghost typing. We have the Lightning Rod ability, so we're holding on to that from our previous non-Alolan forms. And then there's also the Rock Head ability, so it does not take recoil damage. That's going to be pretty nice right there. Cubone, one of those interesting Pokemon where it can only become the Alolan form in the 7th generation. So if you want a regular Marowak, that's a different guide, and that's going to be through transfer only right now. So that's going to be pretty crazy. But looking at the moveset for the Marowak compared to Alolan Marowak, add Fire, add Ghost, and you pretty much have the same thing. That even with our new typing and being a completely different Pokemon, we keep our Boomerang, we can keep our ground and rock-based moves. So that's going to be pretty nice to have on the coverage for the Marowak right here. Then we can see with the TMs and HMs, that's going to effectively be the same thing, except that Marowak actually gets exclusives. So there's nothing on the TM scale that regular Marowak gets that Alolan Marowak doesn't get. So we can pretty much use everything. We need the Stone Edge, you've got it. We want to throw down Earthquake, we've got it. But we also have extra tech like the Will-O-Wisp if we want to use that. So that's going to be very interesting for a moveset. And since it's just Cubone becoming Alolan Marowak, all the egg moves are going to be the same. So just add more to Marowak and get rid of the ground stab. And that is going to be the Alolan Marowak right there. Pretty interesting stuff. So let's go hop on over to Pokemon Showdown and talk about the Alolan Marowak. So these are just some of the extra move options that we'll cover in a bit. But right now, the main moveset is just going to be Thick Club, damage, damage, damage. So this is going to be a singles-based moveset for the Marowak, and you can either run the Rock Head or you can run the Lightning Rod. Lightning Rod is just a really good switch-in that if they are running a Scarf or a choice Pokemon that is using Electric-type moves, bring in the Marowak. We're not really caring about getting a special attack boost. We just add an immunity. So now we're immune to normal, fighting, and electric. That was also a neutral hit, so now there's even like more just high super effective or high resistance on this Pokemon, just adding to the typing with that ability. Or you can also go with that Rock Head, because Rock Head makes it to where you don't take recoil from the Flare Blitz, and that can be pretty big, because a 120 Flare Blitz double damage stab boosted move insanity is going to be doing a lot of damage to the opponent, but also doing a lot of damage back to yourself. And if you're a slow Pokemon that's trying to tank, then that could lead you to some problems. They take a big hit, and then you Flare Blitz, and then recoil KOs you after you KO the opponent. So Rock Head will reduce the chance of that happening. Then we can see just max out hit points, max out attack, Adamant Nature, and then Thick Club. If holder is Cubone or Marowak, attack is doubled. That's more damage than a Garchomp with a Choice Band, so pretty crazy right there, and no drawbacks. That Life Orb makes you take damage while also only being 1.3 times. Choice Band locks you in, so just free big hits right there, which is why pairing that with the Flare Blitz is just going to be KO City. Other than Flare Blitz, we have the Shadow Bone, so an exclusive move to the Marowak, physical ghost type move, so gaining stab, 100% accuracy, and a chance to lower the target's defense. Not too worried about like getting that defense drop on the opponent, but it's just extra coverage. It's a non-recoil move if we are running the Lightning Rod. Then we have Will-O-Wisp, just make it to where the opponent becomes less useful, and then Boomerang for that ground type coverage. You can hit those 4 times super effective ground moves, or you can also just find the coverage where you need to use it and it wouldn't work otherwise. And then we just have doubles Marowak. Think this Marowak, but throw a Protect in there somewhere. Usually people will get rid of the Will-O-Wisp and they run offensive moves with that Protect. And because Marowak is so slow, you have a couple of different things you can run. You can run the Brave Nature, and then with that, you're just maxing out the attack, maxing out the hit points, being fairly tanky, and then if a Trick Room comes up, well, now you just do insane amounts of damage while being the slowest Pokemon on the field, which now becomes the fastest Pokemon on the field, and then you blow everything up with a Flare Blitz, and that's pretty much it. You get to neutrally one-shot so many Pokemon with this. And in doubles, Lightning Rod becomes very useful because if they're going for a single target electric type move, Lightning Rod completely negates that. So Thunderbolt onto your Celesteela pretty much means nothing, which means Marowak Celesteela is big and Tapu Koko is big, and then they just kind of formed into the meta, and that's pretty much how it happened. There's nothing really special. Like, when I first saw the Lightning Rod, it's like, wait, is Alolan Marowak special attacking in any way? No, it's just that Lightning Rod helps out your Celesteela, which is a mean Pokemon, but at the same time, it counters the opponent's Celesteela, which is a mean Pokemon, and then Tapu Koko's already everywhere for being like one of the fastest, more reliable sweepers, and then it just kind of happened that way. That's pretty much it. It's only in the power of that Lightning Rod and then having insane amounts of damage, but not because Marowak's hiding any kind of crazy moveset or any kind of crazy tech. You just run it fairly bulky, you go out there, you're a slow Pokemon, but you still hit harder than pretty much anything out there, and then you just win. You also run Protect for the outplays, and that's a GG on the Marowak. So, looking at some of the other things we can do, Rock Slide, Earthquake, Substitute. Substitute that's more singles oriented, that if they aren't able to blow you up, you get a free sub, and then you can convert something off that, or if they go for setup. You know, they're going for setup, you sub, and then you one-shot them with a Flare Blitz. You kind of nullify whatever they do, and you turn their big hit into just a quarter of your health. Looking at the damage calculations for the Alolan Marowak, pretty solid stuff. Like, Flare Blitz just one-shots a Silvally. That's kind of all you need to know. A high hit point, high defense Pokemon is going to be very, very threatened by a Pokemon like the Marowak. And if we change up the typing a bit, we can see that the Shadow Bone is a very solid amount of damage neutrally, that we're getting around 75, a little more than 75% right there. Flare Blitz, still one-hit KOing, and if Bone Ring finds a super effective hit, that is also going to be very powerful. So just adding to that coverage, Flare Blitz neutrally one-shots, Shadow Bone's your backup, Bone Meringue, if it hits super, you kind of win anyways. Just the power of that thick club adding to it, and that's kind of the craziest thing to think about, is that this is no different than just a regular Marowak. The regular Marowak still does crazy things with that thick club, with that damage, but having that typing change, access to a little bit more utility, it just got like, oh, yeah, we just add on to the Marowak, and it becomes better. There wasn't even stat changes, and that's kind of what got me about this. So just kind of showing, yeah, there's a lot of effectiveness right here that turns out to be pretty solid. Looking at the tankiness and other hits you can do, Shadow Bone, super effective hit against like even like a heavily defensive oriented Tapu Lele or anything going defensive. If you hit it super effective, you're still going to be finding a lot of KOs right there. And depending on the situation, you can also maybe find some survivability, because some people have even opted for a careful nature Marowak, and it shows that you don't really drop anything where it matters. This is still a hit point defense invested Tapu Lele. Flare Blitz is one-shotting, Shadow Bone still one-hit KOing on that super effective hit, and then it's enough to survive a Psychic under the Psychic terrain as long as no other items are coming into play. So it just shows that, okay, if anything, Marowak now has too much damage with that Flare Blitz. So that's why over in Pokemon Showdown, you might have noticed with this set right here that there was a plus and a minus in a different place. It's because we're running the Careful nature as some kind of strange backup thing you can do, because as we just showed right there, we're getting a lot of neutral one-hit KOs against what's in the meta and what actually matters. So by running the Careful nature, you're just getting extra tankiness. So now you just survive more special attacks, and you're not even compromising on damage that much. So interesting thing to consider right there, and because of that, we especially KO other Pokemon like the Tapu Koko. Still going to be a pretty mad amount of damage right there. So 115%, and still doing like very threatening amounts on the Shadow Bone. Bone Meringue is also going to be a KO. Looking into some of the other threats like the Celesteela, I was about to say that's especially defensive, but even if we go more into like a fully defensive Celesteela, 2v2 on hit points, 2v2 on defense. With that Careful nature, Flare Blitz isn't really changing anything, and even like ultimate defense Celesteela. So if we're hitting a super effective hit on a bold or impish Pokemon that has roughly 100 in hit points, 100 defense, still going to be enough to KO with that Flare Blitz, even though we're running a special nature. So that shows the optimization right there. We're not really sacrificing anything, so why not just take the free stats on something like the Careful nature? And it can also work in these single battles if you're running Careful nature with a Rock Head, and you're just making yourself tankier and bulkier, become a 2-3 hit KO Pokemon in some situations, and then you just like double tap anything with a Flare Blitz, and they still go down. And then the last damage calculations for the Alolan Marowak are pretty much going to be, how tanky are we? I think Garchomp is kind of a decent Pokemon to show for this, because remember, everything is either resisted or a super effective hit. So Dragon Claw for a neutral hit is still going to be solid damage, but it's like 3-hit KO ranges with our 60 hit points into our 110 defense and some tanky investment right there. Now this is a no item Garchomp, so if I had Life Orb, that does turn into a 2-hit KO. So kind of showing that if we're like doing big boosted damage on a big threatening Pokemon, things can get scary. But in doubles, we can still survive Earthquake. So we can survive those super effective hits, we can survive split damage hits from even very powerful Pokemon that are going for like the most damage, at least in doubles on that Earthquake. Singles, it's a little bit of a different story. Even if we go and take off the Life Orb, it's a high chance to KO us. But like I said, it's not about like, oh, Garchomp going to beat Marowak. It's just showing that we're a little tankier than you'd expect. So it shows like the off super effective hit, as long as it's a physical super effective hit, will be survivable. Everything else neutrally, we can deal with pretty well. And then Shadow Bone is still good damage, that we just bonk them with that Shadow Bone, and then we do about 70% to a Garchomp. That's pretty respectable. So if a Garchomp switches in on Shadow Bone, it's still going to feel like Garchomp can't really switch in on anything. So it also shows that as long as you're making the right moves, it's just too much damage to deal with. Even something that's resisting or even a defensive Pokemon is going to take more damage than it would like to take just by trying to face the Alolan Marowak on its own terms. So that's something about the Alolan Marowak. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.